Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to a special edition here on NDB Media. We're going to be covering the events that are happening in the Middle East today that have just happened, continue to happen, and most likely will be talking about the events that transpire after this. On a day that Southern California is remembering the earthquake that set off the most recent events here in Southern California 37 years ago, the famous Whittier quake. We had a minor earthquake strike us just before we went live here in Southern California. I don't know if it foretell, if it's a foreshock. I don't know if it's an aftershock. Don't know, but how eerily familiar to that day 37 years ago. But in Southern California, it is unimportant for everything that is going on in the world. And we're going to be talking about that today. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Roger Noriega, and I'm joined by my two illustrious co-hosts. Why don't you go and introduce yourself, Dan?
I am Dan Schlossberg. I'm the host and founder of Travel Radio.
Bob.
And I'm Bob Nessoff with the new program, Jet Setter, coming up. Background as a daily newspaper reporter and magazine editor.
Yes, gentlemen, NDB Media, as you know, has done quite a bit of stuff in the past, but we pale in comparison to these two gentlemen who are the real professionals who have seen it and done it, and I asked them to join me today. All right, I'm basically going to just go over it real quick, and I'm going to ask my two esteemed colleagues, dare I say, to assist me on this, but about 10:20 Pacific time, local time for me here out here on the West Coast, I received word that there was an imminent attack. Iran possibly launching ballistic missiles as opposed to what they did in April earlier this year. And we'll get into the difference between a cruise missile, a drone, and a ballistic missile shortly. But as of about an hour ago, it looks like this event has passed. Dan, what do you know has happened so far from the attack?
Well, not a whole lot, except I think Iran is trying to send a message for sure. And maybe this is just a first wave, because I thought that with the Jewish New Year coming in a couple of days and the anniversary of October 7th right behind that there would be some events either on one or both of those days. So we're just a couple of days early here.
Oh my goodness, that's October 7th, is it not?
That's correct.
Yes, we are nearing 1 year. Wow. This is all transpiring fast, so I'm going to ask everyone to bear with us. If you have any comments in the chat room, please fire them off. We will be going over the comments as we see appropriate and fit, because we are going to be commenting about the events that are happening today. Bob, what do you understand has happened so far?
I'm going to go off context on it for a minute. I see a comment that somebody made over here. Until Netanyahu is removed from the land of the living, all this nonsense is going to keep going on. This stuff started well before Netanyahu was in office. It'll go on well beyond after. I don't know what this individual is drinking or smoking over here, but it is definitely an anti-Israel thing. It's got nothing to do with Netanyahu. Israel was attacked. Israel defended itself. We didn't sit back during Pearl Harbor. We didn't sit back in the War of 1812. You know, this is going to go on forever. Let me just give you a historical context over here, if I may. 1947, when the UN partitioned Israel, there was much more land than it is now. Israel has been the only one asked to give up anything for peace. They gave up the West Bank. They gave up Gaza. In 1947, they said to the so-called Palestinians, stay with us and build a country. The Grand Mufti of Jerusalem, who was a personal friend of Adolf Hitler, said, leave and we will destroy them and take over the whole country. There is no other group of people in the world who have been kept as refugees all these years since 1947. And that's because the Arab countries, the Muslims, the religion of peace, the people of peace, want to use them as a political coin. And that, to our friend over here who says Netanyahu should be removed from the land of the living, he ought to, I'm going to stop right now, because that really frazzles me with that stupidity.
Thank you,
I
Bob.
want to agree with Bob totally. I am very pro Netanyahu. He's the longest serving prime minister in the history of Israel. And there's a reason for that. He cares about security and he knows about security. He's written 3 books on terrorism.
Yep.
He's a good man to have. And thank God that Israel has him right now.
This is not a time for appeasement. Israel is the only country in the Mideast that protects other religions. Every mosque has got Israeli protection, the IDF and the police departments. Christianity is protected. Churches are protected. There is not a country in the Mideast and any of the Arab countries that has an active synagogue. Most of them don't even permit churches. Saudi Arabia, it's illegal to practice any other religion. It's illegal to bring a Bible into Saudi Arabia.
There are many things that are not discussed in the land of the living, for lack of a better word, but the reality is that this goes way back. The current conflicts, I suppose, as Bob said, could be to 1947 when the UN said they were going to do what they were going to do. And we have the issue at hand that the Arab nations decided amongst themselves to destroy Israel. Israel was never, it held its ground in every battle that was fought, every war that was fought. And I'm not going to say might makes right, but they are fighting for their survival. Please, gentlemen, correct me if I'm wrong, but Hezbollah and Hamas, the ones that Israel are fighting directly right now, exist for one reason and one reason only. And that is the destruction of Israel. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes. Now, the items that we're dealing with today have direct connection to October 7th. And that is where Hamas led what, gentlemen? An invasion, an incursion, an attack. Right?
1,200 people enjoying a concert and living their lives.
Yes. And it is something that has not been resolved because there are still, I understand, hostages held by Hamas. And it began to grow due to what they were doing. I forget, the Houthi rebels began to attack as well, all in support of Palestine or Hamas. And then we had the event that took place in April after Israel eliminated someone. Was he Iranian or was he from Hamas or Hezbollah?
Hezbollah.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what happened over the last few days is because Israel has been most effective in eliminating key leadership figures in Hezbollah. And this is clear retaliation. Gentlemen, is it tit for tat or is it bigger than that?
Dan, do you want to take this or should I?
You can take it.
All right. It's not tit for tat. You know, if somebody attacks you and you respond to try and stop them from ever doing it again, is that tit for tat? You've got this guy over here on the side who says now Hamas bombs Israel every 7 years. They knew it was coming. Netanyahu, if he was doing his job, it wouldn't happen. This guy, excuse me, I don't usually get the pejoratives when I'm on a live stream, but this guy is a bloody moron over there. I don't know what his problem is, but he is so bigoted, it's just unbelievable. It's tribal. There is no way that there's ever going to be peace until look, let me go back one step. The Israelis gave up a whole batch of land to the so-called Palestinians. There were greenhouses, there were fields. The first thing that the so-called Palestinians did when they came in was to destroy the greenhouses because Israel built them. They could have kept them going. They could have provided food for their people. You know, go back in history. Where in anything in the Quran or anything does it mention Jerusalem? It doesn't mention Jerusalem. The Israeli Bible does. The Jewish Bible does. The Torah mentions Jerusalem many, many times. When did they suddenly become a country? There has never been a country of Palestine. There has never been a president, a Sharif, or anybody leading so-called Palestinians. All of a sudden, they became Palestinians. They could be living in peace with Israel right now instead of trying to kill them. This is not Palestinian. This is strictly anti-Semitical.
Well, as Golda Meir once said, there will be no peace in the Middle East until the Arabs love their children more than they hate the Jews. Well, very true. Very true. And I don't know if you can ever resolve this difference. I mean, this goes back years and years, way before the formation of Israel. In 1929, in the town of Hebron, there was a pogrom by the Arabs against their Jewish neighbors with whom they had lived in peace. Many people were killed or wounded. What did they do to provoke that? The same thing that the Jews living on the kibbutzes in October last year, who were peace promoting people, all they wanted was peace. They did nothing to provoke the attack of Hamas.
Look, there was one of the Hamas terrorists, that's all you can call them, who got hold of a cell phone, called his mother, and his comment was, "Hey, mother, mama, I'm a hero. I've killed Jews." They would rape women. They had one woman watch as they killed her infant, and then they killed her. I mean, we're not talking about human beings. You can't even call them animals because animals do not kill wantonly. And these so-called Palestinians, and I can only call them so-called Palestinians, are not even animals. They're just subhuman.
I would like to make a comment about the IDF in answer to one of the posts that was put up a while ago. The IDF is the most humane army in the history of the world. They try to evacuate civilians before they attack. They let people know when they're coming. They go out of their way to protect civilians. No other army does that. We didn't do that in World War II either in Germany.
No. Well, what we and Lethal Migraine, I ask you to please measure your comments right
Excuse me,
now.
I'm sorry, Roger. This clown, lethal, migraine, whatever it is, and currently the IDF is doing the same thing. Raping, stealing, abusing kids. Plenty of video by both Western. That's such, excuse the phrase, bullshit.
And I appreciate the commentary in the chat room, ladies and gentlemen. I want to redirect what is going on, if I may. We understand that right now, as I mentioned about 3 hours ago, we had received reports that Iran was attacking Israel, and the dimension changed in this one. There were no drones, the cruise missiles, they've switched to ballistic missiles now. The capability of Iran has changed. They have shown that they will launch these weapons. And the thing about a ballistic missile, it is much more difficult to bring down. As a matter of fact, in the mutual assured doctrine of the United States, our defense of ballistic missiles, these missiles, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, are designed to launch in a high orbit. They reach their terminal or their apex, and then they come down in the terminal phase, and they're very difficult to shoot down. The ballistic missile goes up into the stratosphere, I suppose, and it comes down. This is a change in the way that the Middle East is now engaging each other. Iran fired off missiles 10 years ago, and now it looks like they have ballistic capability. And Iran was stated, and I'm paraphrasing, approximately 30 minutes ago, said, this is not 1/4 of our ability. So Hope has a comment. It is easy to place blame and perception on the IDF when you know nothing about them. They are not what people are saying they are. They are unlike any other army. You can be the best army with the best intentions and still be made to look like a villain these days. Sad. No respective journalism being conducted in these stories. Um, in many ways, it is yellow journalism. These gentlemen can tell you exactly what that is. But what we do know today is Iran is retaliating for the attack on their proxy, which is Hezbollah. Correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen. In the last week, Israel has eliminated the number 1 and number 2 of Hezbollah.
And number
Yes.
3.
They got number 3?
Yep.
Okay. Folks, Hezbollah exists for one thing and one thing only. That's the destruction of Israel. Jordan has peace with Israel. Egypt has peace with Israel. And surprisingly, in the last few years of the Trump administration, Israel has peace with several states in the Persian Gulf. I will not mention them right now because I do not recall, but there's rumors that Israel may have peace with one of the bigger countries in the Middle East. Hasn't come to pass yet, but we shall see. But right now, what do you see, Dan? Do you see this growing bigger? Because it looks like Iran is itching to make this a bigger conflict.
Well, they better be careful because Israel would like nothing better than taking out their nuclear capability. Iran cannot be allowed to get nuclear weapons. It'll be a plus for the whole world, not just Israel, if Iran's nuclear weapons are taken out.
Some years ago, Israel attacked the Iranian nuclear facilities and was condemned for it. Turned out that Israel was right. There were nuclear facilities. Israel could do it again, and maybe they should.
Wait a minute. Is that with the computer program
No, it
Susnet?
was a military attack. They have
Okay.
they have
I
what,
remember
they
in
have what are called-
1980.
Israel
Sorry,
has
Bob.
what I'm sorry, Roger. Go ahead.
And I apologize. 1980 was the attack on the reactor in Baghdad. Is that the one that you referred
No, it
to?
wasn't in Baghdad. I forgot where in Iran it was. But currently now, Israel has what are called bunker buster bombs. They can go through 20, 30 feet of solid concrete, and that will take out their underground nuclear facilities.
What does the end game of this war look like? Do they stop after they reach their goal, or does it continue on? Folks, this is something that Bob reminded me about earlier, and maybe Dan did before we had the conversations of going live. Bob mentioned this a few moments ago. Since we've been live, Israel is the only country in the Middle East that allows freedom of your personal belief. They're the only country in the Middle East that protects the buildings of those that are not of the same belief. There are people in Israel that hold citizenship of the enemy, and they're in the Knesset. They're in the IDF. I believe you did tell me that, right, Bob?
That's correct, and the local police force as well.
And the local police forces.
And
It is
the women wear hijabs.
That's right. Yes. In Saudi Arabia, as you mentioned, it is illegal to even enter with the Bible. You cannot have anything that is outside of the belief. In many other countries, not all, but in many, it is impossible to have a belief, much less a place to go to pray. And many of these countries are out to see the destruction of Israel, which was established by the UN Charter. It was 47, right, gentlemen?
Yes.
And on the day, 1948, the shooting started that day, right?
It started immediately. And unfortunately, what happened as the British began moving out of their outposts over there, they left their weapons behind. So when the Arabs came in, they had weapons to use.
Hope comments, I know this is bigger than just these two countries. Russia and China are watching and learning from what we do with this situation. It will tell them what they need to know before they finalize their moves on Ukraine and Taiwan. You know, ladies and gentlemen, the United States is sadly in a bad position right here. It's in a bad position because they are the world cop. I don't know if they still have the ability to be. I believe there are moments that they can, but it is something that America is being tested worldwide. And in today's world of a little robot, a little drone can defeat a tank, what do we do? What does the United States do? The ability to shoot down a drone or a missile, the United States and Israel, and to a lesser extent the former Soviet Union, they have the ability to do it. A drone costs $50. A Stinger missile, 300,000. They can eventually bleed the United States to death if they just fire off more drones, and even Israel to that. What is the end game, as Hope asked? What needs to be done, gentlemen? If you were in positions of power right now, what would you do?
That's a hard answer. I don't know if either Dan or I have a solid answer for that. But the thing is, in Iran, there is no opposition permitted.
No.
Thanks to the guy who turned 100 years old today, Jimmy Carter, when they forced the Shah out of Iran and Khomeini took over, women were able to wear skirts. They were able to wear makeup. Now they have to wear shrouds. It's tribal. It's tribal. If the opposition was allowed honest elections, I think you would find that the mullahs would be forced out of power. And that's where peace could come from. But it ain't going to happen. Not in recent years.
Prior to 1979, Iran was an educated country. It was a country that was doing well in the world.
Yep.
It was not it was a progressive country, and it went backwards with the revolution. And it's really a shame because there is no free vote in Iran.
And not only that, but the Iranians and Israelis were friends.
They were. That's right.
Look, Dan and I know a fellow, Fred Assa, who prior to the mullahs coming in, he was an artist. His stuff was given the Queen's prize, whatever it was. He does amazing work. He came to this country, and he would not tell anybody he was Iranian. He told everybody he was Persian. His daughter had made her way to France. She was kicked out of college because nobody in her family had died for the revolution. His cousin disappeared off the street. A couple of days later, his aunt got a knock at the door, opens the door. There's her son's shirt, bullet-ridden and bloody over there. And to this character who's writing these things on the side, that had nothing to do with Netanyahu. It preceded Netanyahu by years. Now, Fred asked us if we could get his daughter into the States. Contacted a congressman. We got her registered at Jersey City State College as a student. This was while she was in France. And a former congressman managed to get her into the country. She was so indoctrinated by them that after her father did all this, she turned on him. It took her over a year or so before she was able to become friendly with her father again.
Lethal Migraine said, I'm talking about the current issue, not the whole 100 years.
But this all builds up to it, Roger.
Let me respond to that. Are we talking about the last year then, Lethal Migraine? Or are we going to go back to 2006 or 2006? Or do we go back to 1981? Do we go back to the Intifada? Do we go back to 1967, 73? It was 73, right, gentlemen, when Israel was, 12 hours away from an annihilation? That was the one, right?
That was the one, 73.
Yes.
I agree.
The tanks that should have come across, they didn't. And then when they finally did, they held them off. And it was the Israeli Air Force that, I'm generalizing and dumbing down the heroism of the defense of Israel. But Israel bought time by using its Air Force to be able to put troops in the way. And Israel was probably a day away from non-existing. It was that close. And do you go back to 67? Do you go back to 1956, 1948? What is it? Ladies and gentlemen, right now it apparently is illegal that Israel owns the Golan Heights. Okay. Israel says they will give them back on one stipulation. Gentlemen, what is that one stipulation?
Peace. Recognition of Israel. I was up in the Golan Heights not too long ago, and I can see why it's a danger. It overlooks so much over there, and that's where the so-called Palestinians were lobbing rockets and mortars into Israel.
Hope, I'm going to get to your comment in a moment. Bear with me. And I want to show some imagery, folks. This is what happened just hours ago. So let me know if you're able to hear it. But this happened. It's approximately 181 ballistic missiles struck all over Israel. Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, I believe Hebron, right in the north, and I don't remember any others, but it was all over Israel. And there are missiles that did hit, but here we are. This happened just hours ago.
They're falling.
Interesting. None of the rockets hit the Temple Mount.
Are they hearing us? Control, do you guys hear Jeremy?
Yeah, I
This
can
is
hear you.
imagery
Picture
from
here is
northern
insane,
Israel.
guys.
Do you hear that?
Yes.
Now the thing. Okay, those are missiles coming in. Oh my.
It's raining.
That's the Iron Dome.
Thank God for that.
Are you able to notice, ladies and gentlemen, when it is a missile, it looks like a fireball, and then you see what the Iron Dome actually has taken out. It looks like fireworks. That was another hit.
I mean, you can see.
Right now, I'm counting, Dana, at least a dozen in the air at one time.
This is
Some rising.
This is a major
I think
attack. Jim Sciutto, this is obviously
it's a major attack. There's no
what
question.
you are seeing, what we are all seeing
Listen.
with our own eyes is a major attack from Iran.
It's a major attack, Dana, and it's an escalation. It's an escalation of this war beyond what we saw. I think potentially beyond what we saw in April when Iran launched dozens of missiles and drones. This attack, according to U.S. intelligence, principally or perhaps entirely ballistic missiles, which are the fastest by far.
Those have been
and
eliminated.
The most dangerous. And now what we're seeing, in addition to those intercepts, is we're seeing fragments falling to the ground. It's like a deadly fireworks display over Tel Aviv.
And
Goodness,
you're
there was an
talking
impact
about
just
Tel
to the
Aviv.
left of us here.
And you're talking about Tel Aviv, Jim. We are looking at pictures right now. We are looking at pictures of Tel Aviv, what you're describing.
Oh, Jesus.
That hit the city.
God. Okay, guys, we got to get off the roof. These are coming down right next to us here.
Please do, Jim. Please do.
They're coming down. One just about. We got to go inside.
Jim, please take cover.
I thank CNN for the ability to be able to see this and having the live coverage. There were two separate videos. The first one was from someone that was recording on their phone, and the second one was live from a rooftop, I imagine from one of the hotels in Tel Aviv. Have you gentlemen been in Tel Aviv?
Yes.
Yes.
Does that imagery look familiar to you?
Tel Aviv is a city. It's like standing on the street in New York and saying, does it look familiar? It's a modern city.
Yeah. Hope says, I wonder if Biden will take accountability in this pressing issue. If he wouldn't have abandoned the base there and left all the weapons and military equipment, none of this would be happening right now. They would have no funding for war. Hope, do you mean the withdrawal from Afghanistan? Or somewhere else? I just need a little bit of clarity on that. And then on a side note, it's rather disturbing that Biden is sending troops over there while we are still pulling bodies from homes in Tennessee and North Carolina. We send troops to help other countries and give the bare minimum to our own people.
Not true. Not true. The National Guard is in there. Other active duty military units are being sent in. We're not giving our people short shrift. We should not, and we aren't.
I do want to say that I'm not sure if you gentlemen are familiar, but the United States has been able to deploy a working air defense system. It's not the Patriot. It's not a Stinger. It's not anything like that. But It is confidential and classified, but take it for what it is. It looks like the United States has deployed a laser defense system. Are you gentlemen familiar with the one that I'm talking about? This is the one that and I left my notes inside. I'm gonna see if I can get them right now. But this defense system was used in April. So the Star Wars defense system that was thought up in 1984 is taking place. It's happening. And it apparently was used in April, and it's most likely being used again today.
Is that the Arrow?
I'm not certain. I'm going to have to run inside real quick to find that out. But Lethal Migraine says the withdrawal from Afghanistan is on Trump. As for this sending military to the Middle East, our military is roughly 2.25 million people. Plenty of people to go. It's amazing that we have air defense system that can be dismantled by a simple EMP in a matter of seconds. I'm not sure what you mean, Hope.
That an electromagnetic force can take out some of the systems.
Well, yes, and I know what an EMP is, yes, but an EMP would probably be a ballistic missile attack anyway. And I'm not going to get into military strategy at the moment. I would probably like to talk about that on another day. But, gentlemen, what is the first thing that you expect Israel to do now?
Israel has already announced. They already announced there's going to be a major series of air attacks tonight all over the Middle East.
I had not heard that, Dan. Where was that announced? Was it from Israel itself?
I read it just before we went on the air, and I don't remember where I read it, but I don't doubt it.
Do you think that they would do it all over the Middle East, Dan, and expand?
That's what they said. They said all over the Middle East. I think Iran is going to catch the brunt of it, though.
My opinion, they should turn the sand in Iran to glass.
Israel and the United States have one thing and one thing in common. They are good at destroying things.
We're also good at rebuilding things, Roger.
Yes. That is true. And I didn't mean to be dismissive of that in any way.
Look at Japan.
Yes. But we are quite good at doing when we set out to do something. And that's fair, Hope. All right. I thank you. Our defense is only as strong as our weakest link. That's what I was referring to. All right, Hope. Thank you. What Hope had a question earlier, and we won't be able to answer it. But she said, what does the end game of this war look like? Do they stop after they reach their goal, or does it continue? Let's look at it from the point, if we're able to, from Hamas and Hezbollah. The destruction of Israel. They have it. Does it end there?
Where's it going to go from there? They may do what the Russians are doing and go from one. If the Russians win in the Ukraine, that's not going to stop them. If the Hamas or Hezbollah, Iran wins in Israel, they're not going to stop there either. I've got to take a call. Excuse me.
Of course, Bob.
Hello. Hello. Hi.
You still got me, Roger.
Dan, were you surprised by this? I was.
Right now.
I was saddened by it. You know, Dan, and forgive me, I know I'm interrupting you. Dan, I'm 55 years old. And I admit that when I was 21, actually 18, 19, 20, and well into my 30s, I was an ignorant warmonger. I believed might makes right, and they harm us, we're not even going to talk. We're going to end them. If I, unfortunately, were a world leader, I wouldn't play this game, especially being
Roger,
the biggest kid on the block.
But Israel has tried to negotiate a peace since the Oslo Accords.
Yes.
With Arafat and Bill Clinton.
That was in 2000, right, Dan?
Yeah. You cannot trust the Arabs. You just can't trust them.
Israel's given up land constantly. Israel is the only country asked to do anything. And whenever these things start, they call for a ceasefire. Look, go back to, I forgot what year it was, when the Egyptians stopped at the border. and they negotiated a truce. And in the meantime, they began building up all of their military at the truce line. When the Israelis called them on it, the response was, "All right, that's where we are now. Let's go from here."
Yeah, because I know in the early 80s, Israel gave up the Sinai Peninsula for peace. Okay, you had the invasion of Beirut or the invasion of Lebanon in 81, 73. That's when the Panama Canal, I apologize, when the Suez Canal was shut down, and then they attacked and they recovered about half of the Sinai Peninsula.
Yes.
And that was it. And of course, Israel stopped them cold. And they eventually gave up that land I guess in 79. And Israel started destroying all the settlements that they had. And they gave it up because they agreed on peace. Israel always has to give up something whenever there's a ceasefire.
Right. The 3-word catchphrase was land for peace. Never worked.
Really, Dan?
They tried. They tried so many different times, different ways, different prime ministers. You can't blame all of this on Netanyahu.
Not unless you're the lethal migraine headache, whatever this guy's name is.
I'm saddened, as I was mentioning earlier. When I was much younger, I was a warmonger. Might makes right. But now, when the war began in 2022 in Ukraine, I was hoping for it to end quickly, because people are dying for what? Folks, Ukraine, there's 2 reasons for the invasion, and my esteemed colleagues can correct me. Number 1, the Russian desire for security. They have been invaded so many times. There's you could understand, maybe sympathize a little bit. They need land in front of them. But another reason why they took Ukraine was for the oil. Remember, they discovered the oil in 2012. 2 years later, they take Crimea and the regions to the east of Ukraine, and now they want the rest of it. And they were stopped by Ukraine and NATO and the Western world. Now, I see a comment in the chat room that tears of joy, the feeling of Muslim around the world, Zionist scums of the world.
Gee, I wonder who he is. Al-Hamadullah.
Here's the thing, Hard Nut 24. Your comment is allowed, not necessarily here, but it's allowed in Israel. It's allowed in the United States. If someone of Christian or Jewish faith said that in a Muslim country, that person would be dead. So you're telling me that because Iran has retaliated, this brings joy to you and to Muslims around the world?
This is probably the same guy who celebrated 9/11.
On the roofs in Patterson, which the politicians said never happened, but did happen.
I remember the Palestinians. They were celebrating on 9/11. I remember that vividly.
That's right. And to try and keep peace, the politicians said it never happened. I knew policemen over there who told me, yes, it did happen, and they were held back from stopping them. I was there at 9/11. I was a first responder. Dan and I are both Army veterans. You know, we have an idea of what goes on.
I remember on that day. I remember how, wow, I remember that day. I'm not a first responder, but being in government service, I'm what I call a second responder. I support first responders. I always have. The very few times that I was called out for disasters and stuff. I was just out there with a paddle and a jacket in a car, directing traffic. I never did anything what a first responder did, but I was ready to go when I was called. I'm disappointed, Hard Nut, that Muslims would be celebrating this. Now, look, I get it. I am from the United States. I have studied this my entire life. I am not Israeli, and I believe due to my heritage, I am 2% Ashkenazi because I did my DNA. I
Yeah,
am. I'm
I'm
2% European.
I'm 1% African. I don't know where that came from.
I am about 10%. And when I found that out, like, I always wonder where that came from, but that's neither here nor there. So,
There are two comments on the side, Roger. One from Hope saying, taking joy in someone's death and destruction is nothing to be proud of. She's absolutely correct. I agree with that. And the gentleman over there who was attacking Netanyahu a minute ago came out. I lost his comment over here now. But
here
he
it is,
said
Bob. It's on screen.
that Putin wants to expand and recreate the Soviet Union. I believe he's absolutely correct on that. It breaks my heart to agree with this guy, but I have to.
But here's the thing. We can acknowledge other people's comments. We're reading them, folks. And I really did not know what we were going to be doing today. I really thought that we were going to be talking specifically of the attack and only the attack, but it's begun to be something else. And I am grateful that you are sharing your comments with us. I may not agree with it, but I'm reading them and I'm trying to understand them. Hard nut. I ask you again. Really? Death and destruction is what brings joy to you? If that is the case, there will never be peace. Never.
Roger, the problem is that Jews revere life, Arabs revere death.
We die, we die. We don't have 72 virgins waiting for us.
You know, gentlemen, I've studied cultures my entire life. It's one thing I've done. And I've done it because I try to understand. I don't want to do stupid, ignorant things in people of other belief systems, other cultures, and everything. And it never occurred to me of what you gentlemen just said, that they put more value on death than they do on life.
Their language is full of the word martyrdom. They think it's a great idea to be a martyr. Blow yourself up and kill a few Jews, and that's wonderful.
Look, in the Quran, I believe, there's a passage that said, the Jew hides behind the tree. Find a rock and kill him. Well, that's paraphrasing it.
For everyone that is watching us now, I'm going to share a little bit about me. When I meet with my clients, and I haven't for some time, but when I do, they sit here in front of me, and behind them, head high, I have 7 books. I know I put up 5. I have something in my country, in my office, that in other places would be illegal. I'm going to tell you what they are. I have the Tanakh. I have the New Testament. I have the Quran. I have the Rig Veda. And I forget the other one. I am so sorry. There's one more that I have. But there's basically the 7 belief systems of the world. I choose to have them because it reminds me of our differences, that I don't know everything, but I want to understand people. I want to be able to converse with them. And I think that was the point of today, to be able to converse.
Look, I think Dan's circle of friends and my circle of friends, they're different, but they're the same. We don't place any, barrier on who we're friendly with. I know I've got friends of just about every, stripe, from Protestant to Catholic, all kinds of Protestants, as well as several Muslim friends. And I'm sure that Dan has the same. I'm sure you do too. But, these are people who are reasonable people who you can talk to. Look, not every Muslim is a terrorist, but almost all terrorists are Muslim. And I'm sure there are a small percentage of the billions of Muslims who are out there.
I would stipulate to that. I would. Gentlemen, how do we calm this situation down? Do we allow? Oh, okay. This is a game I probably didn't want to go down. But if Israel is going to strike, and it will be all over the Persian Gulf, will they then respond in kind? Will Iran get what it wanted?
Yes.
I agree.
I think Iran wants to provoke a worldwide conflict with this.
Years ago, it was said that World War III will start in the Middle East. Well, here we are.
There are several countries that are known to be nuclear powers: China, Russia, India, Pakistan, the United States, Great Britain, or the United Kingdom, um,
France.
France, thank you. And I'm deliberately leaving one off for a moment, but there may be another one there that I'm not certain of. But, oh, North Korea. I'm so sorry. Yes, North Korea. And there still may be yet one more. But putting all those aside, there is one country well known to have it right now in the Middle East. It's the worst kept secret in the world.
It couldn't be Israel, could it?
Could it be Israel?
I shall neither confirm nor deny.
Ladies and gentlemen, if Israel wanted to destroy its enemy, it has the reason, it has the ability, and it has the means. And yet it has not used that. We understand that in 1973, the planes were on the fighter deck. They were on the landing strip because it was that close, as we talked about briefly. Why hasn't Israel used their nuclear arsenal?
Because they're human.
And you mean?
Is it because Israel does want to live in peace?
You know,
Yes.
there was only one time that Israel launched a preemptive attack. Every other time they've been attacked.
We are a world of laws. We are a world of people that got together to form the League of Nations, which failed, and eventually gave us the United Nations. It exists for peace. And whether you want to talk about the bastardization of whatever it is today, it really doesn't matter. But when you look at what happened to the people of Israel in Europe, how could you, let's ignore I know it's impossible, but let's ignore everything else. The people of Israel, I believe, had earned the right to return to their ancestral homeland. And it was done by the UN Charter. Or the resolution, right? Not the charter, the resolution.
Correct.
I don't understand why Israel. What, gentlemen, why? Tell me, why does the Muslim world, in just because of the resolution, is that really the only reason? Because I've said it goes deeper than that. It's biblical. It goes back to, is it Isaiah and Ishmael?
Go back to Ramses and Moses.
Okay.
Before that, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Oh, Isaac and Jacob. I'm so sorry.
You're right.
Isaac
Dan.
and Jacob. They, in religious class, a priest, the first words he said, this is how it goes biblical. Isaac and Jacob flipped each other off, and they've been fighting ever since. It was a flippant comment, but he didn't leave it at that. He described why we are where we are today. But I always remembered the image of the two brothers fighting ever since then. How do we end this, gentlemen?
You know,
Hope asked, what is the end game? How do we end it?
As
It's
long
not
as-
giving up land then anymore, right, Dan?
Israel is already so small, it can't afford to give up any more land.
size of New Jersey.
New Jersey's bigger, isn't it?
It's about the size, but over there by the West Bank, you take a look at the pinch. You could throw a rock from one end of the border to the other in Israel.
So, gentlemen, I have to understand, why is it illegal that Israel is occupying the West Bank when they were invaded? And then they, in turn, said, well, you attack us, we're going to take this. How is that illegal?
Well, number one, Roger, they're not occupying the West Bank. It is disputed territory. Israel claims that it's their land. It's Samaria and Judea, the West Bank.
Well,
The Golan Heights has already been annexed. Jerusalem has already been annexed. They are part of Israel now and recognized by the United States, too.
The Palestinians want part of Jerusalem, East Jerusalem, for their capital. The Palestinians have got no biblical, no historical connection to Jerusalem.
But knowing that the UN resolution created two states, what do we do? If Israel were to absorb all the Palestinians into a state of Israel,
That would be the end of Israel.
it would be the end of Israel. What do we do? And maybe this is not the proper venue to discuss that.
I don't
Well,
know.
Jimmy Carter, whose 100th birthday is today, as Bob mentioned, wrote a book called Israel, Peace Not Apartheid. How could he dare accuse Israel of apartheid? It is the most open country in the world, even more than the United States, while all of the Muslim countries are guilty of apartheid. They don't let Jews in. Israel lets plenty of Arabs in.
Jimmy Carter is a closet anti-Semite. He always was. He comes from a family not only of anti-Semites, but a family of Ku Klux Klansmen.
Wow.
You know, here, our friend Lethal Migraine Headache, whatever his name is again, said the United Nations is pretty worthless as it's far too easy to veto stuff. I hate to agree with him again, but he's right. He's right. Russia can veto almost anything. China can veto anything.
This comment was minutes ago, Dan, when we were talking about the retaliation that
Yes.
looks like Israel is going to do or perform, however. Folks,
However, it can't not retaliate. I'm not saying nuclear necessarily, but it can't just sit there and be a sitting duck again, as it was when Iraq was launching all those Scud missiles.
If they sit back, the
oh my God, yes.
take that as a show of weakness.
Yeah, I remember that. Israel, oh my God. Yes, if they had any right to respond, and I think even Saudi Arabia during that said Israel has a right to respond.
Saudi Arabia hates Iran.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. But the attack by the Scud missiles, yeah, that I remember that. I remember watching that video in 1991. Those were frightening times, and these are frightening times. Is it only us that are older in years that seek peace? Is it the youth, the kids, that are ones that want to fight? Is that what it comes down to? Or is it kids listening to the older folks?
I don't think it's anybody. Look, anybody who wants to fight, I think is an abject minority. And I don't think, it's like, excuse me, Bobby Kennedy with the worm that ate his brain. I think anybody who wants to fight, wants to go to war, has got something wrong with his brain. Any sane person wants peace. But you can't sit back and get the you-know-what kicked out of you and not do anything about it, because that's a sign of weakness, and it'll just happen again.
Elizabeth Bowman says, hope. Sadly, I agree with you about it being a vicious cycle. As much as we all desperately wanted to, human nature doesn't change. This has been going on for thousands of years. Yes, it has. How do we end it? How does it end?
I don't know. If I was smart enough, instead of be sitting here and talking to you right now, I'd be in the White House.
I'll tell you one thing. Had I been in the White House on that fateful day in September, once everything calmed down, my first phone call would have been to Mossad. Go and do what we can't do. I'll clean up the mess.
Hey,
Unfortunately, when Obama was in the White House and Netanyahu wanted to nuke Iran, Obama said he would shoot down the Israeli planes rather than let them proceed.
Now, Dan, I had heard a rumor of that. Could you please enlighten us a little bit more on why Israel wanted to do what was going on?
The same exact behavior as is going on today. Iran is killing its own people and everybody around it that doesn't agree with it.
you know, the mentality, I'm sorry, Dan, the mentality we're dealing with in Iran, go back not that many years to the war between Iraq and Iran. The Iranians were sending children to walk through minefields to clear the mines so their troops wouldn't get hurt. They were blowing up their own children. Dan's comment about what's her name? Yeah, when they love their children as much as they hate us.
Right, Golda Meir.
Say again, Danny.
Golda Meir.
Yeah, repeat the comment.
Golda Meir said there will be no peace in the Middle East until the Arabs love their children more than they hate the Jews.
There's your answer right there. See, the silence that we have right now tells us everything. We don't know. I don't know that there is ever an answer to it. You know, it may be just an armed standoff for the rest of time,
as it has been since the beginning of time. Bob is over 80. I'm over 70, and nothing has changed.
And I'm over 54.
In our lives. Nothing has changed in our lives.
Dan? Didn't realize I was that old. Hey, look, I was a kid when I went into the Army. I was 18 years old.
Yeah, me too.
But Patton's comment about, I don't remember the exact quote, but the object is not to, protect yourself. The object is to kill the other guy before he kills you.
Oh, yeah. Yes. And it was also in the movie. No silly SOB died saving his country. But instead, he killed the other guy or something like that. And I'm not trying to make a joke of it, but yes.
Something like that, yeah.
Gosh, I should know that. I should remember my prior lifetime. I'm sorry, folks. Even my memory's going from prior lives. Right now, the primary issue is Hezbollah and Hamas exist for one thing and one thing only. That's the destruction of Israel. That's it. There will never be peace in any form until they acknowledge Israel's right to exist. And when they acknowledge Israel's, I'm sorry?
That won't happen until their backs are up against the wall.
Or if they're destroyed.
Yeah, I'll go with that.
Yes. And I loved what Israel did with the pagers. That was fantastic.
Yeah, well, Israel now told them that the pages are out of warranty, so they'll replace them for them.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to laugh at that. This is bigger than all of us. And I know that very few people are listening to us, but there may be a confusing message because a lot of it is anger. A lot of it is resentment. A lot of it is seeing things that others have not seen. But I ask, if you are spending even just a little bit of time with us, it is to understand that you need to start talking. You need to have a conversation.
It's been tried, Roger. It's been tried. Well, look what happened to Anwar Sadat. He was the leading Arab looking to make peace with Israel. They murdered him.
And Yitzhak Rabin.
He did make peace. Yitzhak Rabin, yes.
Elizabeth Bowman on the scroll over here says divine intervention is the only thing that will stop it here. Well, God gave mankind free will. And that means that God is not going to step in and pull our bones out of the fire. It's up to us to do it.
Well, God didn't step in during the Holocaust. Why would he step in now?
Yep.
Yeah. If there's anything that I would ask all of you is to start speaking to your neighbors, to have a conversation, to understand that being different is okay, but to take joy in the death of someone, no. I'm shattered by that one comment earlier that the Muslim world is celebrating the attack. I don't believe that is true. I believe there are individuals, but yeah, we're not going to be able to resolve this.
No.
At least
No,
not.
but if people were doing what we were doing right now and talking, that might be a big step.
Yeah. And while I may disagree with a few of the comments here, we still listened and read them. And in other parts of the world, they would be ignored.
Look, Dan and I have known each other, I don't know, 20 some odd years, Danny?
Oh, more than that.
Okay.
More like 40 odd years.
I can't tell you how many times we've disagreed. And we disagreed. So what? We're still friends. Didn't mean he was right and I was wrong, or I was right and he was wrong. Although I generally thought he was wrong.
That's fair. All right. Is there any message that you wish to share?
Well, on the occasion of the Jewish New Year, which comes up in a couple of days, I want to wish everybody a happy, healthy New Year. Not only Jewish listeners, but Christian, Muslim listeners, and peace in the world. Shalom means peace.
When my wife passed away, a Catholic friend of mine asked me if I would mind if you went to church and said a prayer for my wife. My response was, not at all. All prayers go to the same mailbox. If we can get past those differences, we can get ahead.
I want to share one last thing. Someone by the name of Naibullah Talwar gave us a positive note in the form of a heart. I wonder where they're from. They did not comment in the chat room.
Look at Hope's comment right now.
Yeah.
Can hear them cheering in the background.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, Hope. Well, I don't know if we solved anything, but at least we got some dialogue going here.
We did. And maybe it's worthy that we do this again. And we had people from all around the world comment. And maybe it starts right here. Wouldn't that be something, gentlemen?
Absolutely.
That would be great.
Let's start talking. I hope Israel does not do what it threatened.
I don't think it has a choice, Roger.
I am no one. And I didn't make this clear. I did say I am born here, I'm bred here, I've lived here. Even though I've studied the history of the Middle East my entire life, I wouldn't even be able to pretend to understand what is happening over there. I've never had a duck for an air raid siren. I've never had a flinch for a bomb going off. I don't understand any of that. I just wish people would stop killing. And I know that's naive, dumb, and stupid.
Not naive, not dumb and stupid. It's an honest hope.
Is that hoping against hope?
I don't know. We'll find out maybe in our lifetime.
Gentlemen, you are so kind. I know you took quite a bit of time out of your day to be with me in this last minute. And I definitely not. So it's not hoping against hope.
Well, As I told you earlier, I've got to go finish packing now.
Yes, we're done. Again, Bob, you took a lot of time out. Thank you. And Dan, thank you as well. Maybe we
You're
can have
welcome.
some more conversations like this in the future.
Okay, thank you. It's dog walking time.
Dan, I'll talk to you when I
Please.
get back.
All right. All
Have
right,
a good
guys.
time, Bob.
Thanks.
We'll see you
too.
guys.
Take care, Roger. Hope
Good
and all the others, we may have disagreed with you. You know, I hope you all have a great night and a peaceful new year.
Yes, agreed.
Shalom.
Shalom.